yeah. I will not lose 14 my dudes. I will not lose 14 my dudes. Go. Check the 40 shorty, yeah. Check the 40 shorty, yeah. Check the 40 shorty. Why you acting all gaudy? This ain't a pod, this a party.
Welcome to the Fantasy 40 podcast. We are back. Myself, Andrew Burke, John Nabari, and Matt Walker. Today we are going to start our all 32 team breakdown. We're doing it by divisions like we did last year. Today is going to be that awesome AFC North. There's actually some interesting teams in here, I guess, with Joe Burrow joining the Bengals. But we'll jump into some rookies, free agent additions, breakout bust sleepers, and probably give one bold player prediction for each team. How's it going, Walk? I mean, seeing all the streets of Philly were crowded there for a while. It's starting to die down, or?
It's an interesting time to be alive, but so far so good on this end. Just exciting to dive into this AFC North. And when before we went live, you when John said, "Don't look at me." I don't know. Was I the only one who immediately thought of that scene in Bridesmaids where that chick is pooping on the sink? And she's screaming at the other girl. Don't look at me!
I was also thinking of American Me. Don't look at me, puppet.
I went right to a dark place.
Why don't we start with the Bengals since I mentioned them first? Walk, who you got for some notable rookies and free agent additions for them?
Yeah, let's just start right at the top. And for all those that don't think we're prioritizing the Bengals. We're simply going in alphabetical order for these teams. So it could be a last shall be first scenario. But the 101 in this year's draft was Joe Burrow. You think that qualifies a notable rookie addition to the team. They also went and tabbed T. Higgins in the second round. We're not going to speak to any defensive players here. If you care about defense, you can go back to last week's episode and listen to our boy Oklahoma Doug give you the knowledge on defense, but we're going to focus on offensive here. So the rookie additions were Joe Burrow and Higgins. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head from a free agent perspective that they added offensively, but they're pretty well filled out in Cincinnati as far as the running backs and the wide receivers are concerned. A little light on the tight end, but I'm actually hearing some things saying that they're going to start using a lot of 4 wide sets as well and get away from that tight end, which is why they didn't prioritize it. So those hoping that Drew Sample is going to have a big breakout might be somewhat disappointed. They do have the wide receivers to implement that kind of 4 wide philosophy if T. Higgins picks it up quick.
John, anybody you want to add there with the rookies and the free agents before we kind of move on?
Walk mentioned not digging too much into IDP, but they really did nothing. They were pretty soft up the middle. Their defense was trashed last year. The only thing they really did of DJ Reader from the Texans, he's a nose tackle, defensive tackle. He should help shore up the middle of that defense and significant free agent signing they also have Von Bell. They brought in at safety. I believe he's going to start free safety for them, but nothing on offense. They took care of that in the draft.
They definitely do have some skill players on the offensive side of the ball. Why don't we start with your breakout, John?
Yeah, for me, I went with kind of a sneaky under the radar kind of pick. That's what a breakout is. I wouldn't be shocked to see Mixon miss some time. So I went on an edge here. I said Anderson or Williams at running back, either Travion Williams or I forget Anderson's first name, but
Rodney.
Rodney, thank you. I think one of them breaks out by default because I think Mixon doesn't show up on time.
Card Ramrod. Walk, you were shaking your head in disappointment when he mentioned your boy Mixon. You want to elaborate on why and then give your breakout?
Yeah, I mean, we're one team in, and John has already decided to go off script by referencing defensive players after I suggested us not doing it. And then he goes and shits on Joe Mixon right out of the gate. So I don't really know where to go from here with this conversation because I take Mixon's slights personally, and he can't be qualified as a breakout because Mixon broken out. I think Mixon has top 5 upside this season. I think they're going to be a lot better offense. So I'm opposed to that. And Gio Bernard's still there. So if Mixon gets hurt or holds out or whatever John's premise is behind this unrealistic breakout of Travion Williams or Rodney Anderson, they're still going to have to contend with Gio siphoning off touches. So If it's not Mixon, it's going to be a timeshare. So we'll disagree with that. My breakout is going to be straight out the gate, Joe Burrow. Joe Barrow is going to be QB1 in his rookie year. He's going to be top 12 this year.
Oh, wow.
So that's breaking out. I don't think I can swing any harder out of the gate. I like Barrow. I think he's ready. He's mature. He has weapons. Even if T. Higgins has a minimal impact in his rookie year, I'm assuming a healthy A.J. Green, who's going to go out to prove it one last time and get a contract extension, whether it's with the Bengals or elsewhere. He has Tyler Boyd out of the slot, which he saw what he did with Justin Jefferson in the slot at LSU. John Ross stretching the field. The aforementioned Joe Mixon out of the backfield with Gio Bernard spelling him. Both those guys are plus pass catchers out of the backfield. And I don't think the Bengals are going to be very good. John referenced some defensive limitations a few minutes ago, and they're going to be in shootouts. And Barrow is going to have to put up stats. I think he brings a little bit more with his legs than people give him credit for as well. So he could add another 300 to 400 rushing yards onto the bottom of a stat line. And I think it's going to be a season where he is a QB1 out of necessity. He's going to throw it more than he probably would like to, than the Bengals would like him to. And, I'm pretty comfortable saying that he's going to be a QB1 right out of the gate.
Sounds like you're alluding to the old Blake Bortles year when he was a QB1. You know, defense kind of struggling. He's on the field playing trash time or whatever, garbage time people want to call it, and just lighten up the scoreboard there in the fourth quarter. So looking forward to that. My breakout's also going to be my player prediction, so I won't get in the numbers. But with limited work, we kind of talked about it the end of the last year, but I'm going to go with John Ross as a real breakout this year. I know it's far-fetched, but I'm going to stick with that, and then I'll give my numbers later on.
He's got nowhere else to go but up.
Yeah, and he's going out after the season because they didn't pick up his fifth-year option. But, I mean, listen, Kyler Murray was a QB7 last year, and Kyler Murray didn't have the greatest all-time season, 3,700 yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. 544 rushing with 4 touchdowns. And that got him QB7 last year. I don't think I'm being bold with Joe Burrow at all because you're talking about another team that didn't have the greatest defense. I'm right there.
Right.
Good luck with John Ross. Give me 500 yards and 4 touchdowns from John Ross to buoy Burrow's stats, and I'll be fine.
Wait till you hear my prediction. All right, let's go to 2,000 yards. We're going to the bus walk. I'll let you bust first. All over it.
Well, the first bust. I mean, I feel like I'm the lead in the in the porn flick. I get the bust first. Drew Sample is way too easy. I think I shit on him earlier enough. Unfortunately, I think a bust is going to be AJ Green, and it's because I'm just concerned about health and desire to be there. And is he going to miss games? He's still the best receiver on their team, bar none, but he's probably more of a wide receiver 2. He's going to have like 1 or 2 wide receiver 1 games, maybe even a high-end wide receiver 3 on the season. So, unfortunately, I'm not seeing the return to glory of A.J. Green this year.
I kind of agree with you there. It's a shame. A.J. was one of my favorite players for a long time. John, where are you at?
Walker and I are so far doing the opposite show. I'm going Joe Burrow. He's also my player prediction, so I'm not going to dive into it too much, but I for a while have not been a fan of this team, not a fan of the coach, not a fan of the system. So I am not as optimistic offensively as Walker is, but I think Burrow's going to let down fantasy owners in year 1.
The you wrong though emoji is just going to come smacking you in the forehead when we release this episode. But all right, hey.
You can just call me Molly. I feel like I'm in between of Max and whatever, Steve and A right now. You guys are just not agreeing on anything. So, John, let's go with your opposite sleeper.
Sleeper, I found some of these teams a little harder because obviously sleeper is somebody who's not very well known. Everybody knows this offense and who's there. Even, your boy John Ross can't be considered a sleeper, even if he does break out. But I actually went with C.J. Uzomah. I don't believe in Drew Sample. I don't think he's going to be their main receiving tight end, even if he does get on the field. What is it, year 2 for him? Year 3?
Sample? Yeah, year 2.
Year 2. So it still takes a while for tight ends to catch on in the NFL. So I think Uzomah, given the tight end landscape in the NFL, he's got sneaky upside to be a productive, low-end tight end 1 this year.
Yeah, no, don't agree with that. So we just continue this. Let's just wipe out the
This is
Bengals. If anyone is going to be sample on the field, and I don't think there are going to be a lot of tight end on the field. I hear 4 wide sets, and it makes sense given their the players that they have there. So it's all a matter of what people think when they say sleeper. And it's not that he's not known, but to me, Tyler Boyd, who was wide receiver 23 last year, played 16 games and had, 90 catches for 1,046 yards and 5 touchdowns for wide receiver 23 last year. He's going to be the alpha. He's going to see far better targets. I mean, he had 148 last year, which is astounding, but with a shit's nest of quarterbacks, and Barrow going to pepper this guy right out of the gate. Tyler Boyd is going to return high-end wide receiver 2 production right out of the gate and might threaten to be a low-end wide receiver 1 this year. So I think that's still sleeperish. No one's drafting him like that.
No.
Beyond him, to John's point, there isn't anyone. There's no one sleeping.
Well, it kind of reminds me of, I guess you can go to like a Robert Woods treatment. You know, he wasn't being drafted high at all, but produce, and I think Boyd's had a solid couple of years in a row. So I like that one. Walk. I was gonna go. I guess it's a deep sleeper, but Travion Williams, just because I feel like Gio Bernard has always gotten the Duke Johnson treatment. Wherever he goes, he just gets treated like shit. Should be on the field in certain situations, never is. Obviously, me and you both like Mixon a lot, but I still feel like they're missing that change of pace guy. If he has a good training camp, I'm not rolling him out in my lineups, but he would be a good stash for best ball because you never know what could happen there with the Mixon situation. So that's where I'll go with it.
Yeah, no argument. Right. And listen, everything I've read is that Travion Williams is clearly the next man up above Rodney Anderson, who got hurt again in his rookie season for the Bengals. So they really didn't get to see him even on the practice field. So if Mixon holds out, which he's not going to do, the new CBA does not allow for you to hold out.
All right, let's go to the next team on the list. Oh, wait, we got our player predictions. My fault. I'll go with mine first. This is the most ridiculous out of the 3 for sure. And then I'll let you guys debate when John smacks Joe Burrow in the face. So I'll start with John Ross's prediction. This is a little hefty one, but I just feel something in my bones. So I'm going to go 75 receptions, 1,080 receiving yards, and I'm going to ATDs. That's not hard. He's done it. He's done 7 before. That's solid. It's flirting up there with wide receiver, high end 2, low 1s in some cases, depending on your league setup. So there's my John Ross prediction. I'm going all in on him.
You're going beyond all in. You got the deed to the house. You're showing your kids' Social Security numbers. You're just willing to risk it all at this point in time. Fair enough. I'm going to dive right in behind that because I just referenced Tyler Boyd earlier, and I'm going to go Tyler Boyd. And the numbers that I'm going to say sound eerily similar to what you referenced for John Ross, but I'm going 1,206 for Tyler Boyd, which would have made him wide receiver 11. It's pretty much what Keenan Allen did last year. Keenan Allen had 104, 1,199, and 6. Little down year for receivers, I believe, overall, but I don't think that is the slightest stretch on what Tyler Boyd is going to put up this year, assuming healthy.
Sounds like with those two combined, there's little room for Mr. A.J. Green. Joe Burrow is going to throw for 7,000 yards this year, John, but I think you have something else to say.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, so I don't like Zach Taylor, don't like Callahan as the OC. I don't think they know what they're doing. They are the fruit of the what appears to now be poisonous McVay tree. Burrow, was he good? I don't know. He wasn't able to beat some other guys out at Ohio State, goes to LSU, beneficiary of Joe Brady's system down there in the Bayou. It's all flash, no substance. Joe Burrow does not finish the year as a top 24 quarterback. I think this team stinks. I think they're garbage, and I think Joe Burrow goes down with the ship.
I'm glad we got this on tape because I can't wait to see how this shakes out.
Well, we said bold, right? So I gotta.
You went bold. So I'm gonna let Watt just stew over that.
Yeah, just before we move on. If I had to ask you, John, is Joe Burrow better or worse than Daniel Jones? Your opinion.
Oof.
That's not a difficult question, John.
Yeah, it is. Pretty equal to me. If I have to pick better or like just pure talent, nothing.
If your
nothing
team
about
had both of them if your team was picking 101 and they were both available in the draft, who do you want your team to take?
Daniel Jones by a hair.
You're killing the segment. Okay. The New York Giants last year, better or worse offense than you believe that the Bengals are going to have this year?
I believe better.
Why?
I don't believe in any of the coaching staff, and I don't I don't necessarily love the players around Burrow either.
Okay.
I think Ross sucks. I didn't like T. Higgins. AJ Green's dying.
I agree there while Walk's getting yelled at for not doing laundry, but
back on the rails. All right, and I'll make this sound pretty. 13 games last year. Daniel Jones was QB 12 on a points per game basis. Okay. He was 12 in an ugly offense where the team sucked and everything else. And similar profiles with plus athletic ability. I think they have clearly comparable offensive weapons. I think you are insane. Literally insane. To say 24. Like 12 might be calling it bold, but there is no way, none, zero, that he finishes outside the top 20. How comes we say in the middle, not outside the top 18? And for you to say outside the top 24, there is just
all right. I'm going to.
Well, yeah, we want to be bold. You get mad when I play the middle. I was going to say QB 18, but I was like, Walk's not going to like that. That's the middle of the QB 2 tier. I said, fuck it, he's out.
Listen, it's more clear as we go forward. It's one player prediction. It's not bold, just a prediction. Doesn't have to be bold. Burke goes bold on everything. That's what threw me off. I actually just went what I think Tyler Boyd's going to do.
I got you guys going like, what? John Ross, 2,000 yards. No, but we can settle this right now. You guys are in plenty of leagues together. Why don't you just bet a first round pick for next year on a? Oh, God, no. No, so John's not.
I don't want to watch any. I don't want to watch any Bengals games.
I tried to solve it. All right. Before we have to get off the air, we still have 3 more teams to do, gentlemen. So we'll go with the Browns. This was a big team coming in last year. Everyone was on the hype train. They picked up Odell. It was going to be in a masterful season. They're going to overtake the AFC North, and to be honest, it was a shit show. Jarvis Landry was probably one of the few bright spots besides Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, getting their touchdowns, but it was kind of a mess. Kitchens is gone. So we will start with you, John, on the notable rookies and free agent signings. Anything of note in there?
They went offensive tackle, which they needed help there. So Jedrek Wills, he was not my favorite amongst the tackles, but I don't know shit about it, so it doesn't matter what I think. But they needed help on the offensive line, so that should help the remainder of the offense. Other than that, they ended up offensively taking Harrison Bryant, who I really liked pre-draft. Landing in Cleveland, though, was not an ideal spot because they picked up Njoku's 5th-year option and signed Austin Hooper, that massive free agent deal. So although I liked him, I don't see where his opportunities are going to come from. And then they also took Donovan Peoples-Jones from Michigan in the 6th round, kind of a crowded wide receiver room. I would have liked to see him land in a better spot, but here we are.
Yeah, I don't know how many more weapons they can give Baker. Walk, do you have anything to add there?
No, John buttoned it up on the free agents in the rookie class. So what I will say with the Browns, and I think you referenced the fancy stuff. You have your treasure trove of notes, so I just wanted to make sure we discussed the change. There's going to be a lot different with this Browns team. And I think the only person that really benefits from all this is Baker Mayfield, because the offensive philosophy is going to change. But you're right. I mean, the weapons that he has and the depth that he has at the tight end position, I think, are pretty formidable as far as any other team in football right now, to be totally honest with you.
With the tight ends that they have, the wide receivers that they have, the running backs that they have, they just, I think they need to pound the rock a little more and run some play action. Guys are going to be open, instead of spreading it out like they were trying to do last year. I think that would be a formidable attack, but I don't know what this guy's bringing to the table offensively as a coach, so that's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, that's the concern. Was Stefanski listening to Zimmer in Minnesota, or was he implementing his own philosophy where it's going a lot of 12 personnel and pound the rock? Don't rely on the quarterback to throw it 40-plus times a game. If they do that, it also means that Jarvis Landry is going to be playing on the outside more than he typically does, which I don't think is in his best interest either. So I'm concerned. I'm interested to see what everyone's take is on these breakout bust sleepers for this team, because I'm remiss if I said I know who's going to produce in this offense and who's going to get the short end of the stick.
Why don't you start off with the breakout then?
Breakout would have to be Austin Hooper. And that's tough to call because Austin Hooper's put up pretty decent points on a per-game basis, but they paid him some highest-paid tight end in the game right now. They prioritized going and getting him.
Crazy.
Speaking to scheme and what they want to do. We're all Njoku fans, but Njoku's had opportunity. I know he got hurt early last year, and that's unfortunate, but he didn't take this job and run with it. He was also a 20-year-old when he got drafted by the Browns, and they were in full dysfunction mode when he got there. So maybe he's just a byproduct of the Browns being the Browns, as John says, but they're going to get Austin Hooper involved early and often in this offense, especially if they go to 12 personnel heavily. So a guy that I think if he can stay healthy, he's one that can challenge kind of that upper echelon of tight ends. And I don't even like Austin Hooper whatsoever. I don't. I think he was a product of Atlanta. They're going to make him a product of the scheme in Cleveland. And he just right place, right time. He was the only tight end available once Hunter Henry got franchised. And they're like, we need that. We need that in our offense. Give him $10 million a year and let's go. So they're not going to let that sit on the sideline. He's going to get probably like 80 targets in the game. He gets threatened for 8 or 10 touchdowns on the season. If he gets either of those thresholds, he's in the top 5 tight end easy.
I'll let you go real quick, John, because my breakout and bust kind of run hand in hand.
We're going to have a fun Dabari Walker conflict show today. Breakout. I'm actually surprisingly going to go Rashard Higgins. You'd mentioned Landry. Yeah. Landry had off-season core injury. Beckham also had an off-season surgery. With the way this off-season is going, with players not able to get in there and work out, who knows how their recovery's going. Higgins has had pretty good rapport with Mayfield since day one, so I wouldn't be shocked at all to see Higgins come in and have he's not going to be a wide receiver one, obviously, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a lot more work earlier in the year as the other two battle their way back from injury. So I like Higgins as a breakout. I mean, obviously you're not going to have sky high expectations. This guy is never going to be a fantasy wide receiver one, but I've taken him in a couple mocks in like the 20th round, and I think he's going to definitely return value on 20th round picks.
And just a point of clarification, Jarvis Landry was hip surgery, which is a 6 to 8 month.
So he was hip, and Beckham was a core, right?
Correct. Yeah, when you said core, I knew.
Those are not good injuries.
No, they're not. Just to go on John's point with Higgins, that was my breakout last year, but he dealt with early season injuries, never really got back on the field afterwards. At least we're not talking about our old boy Antonio Callaway anymore. That ship has sailed. I don't know where he went, but that's too bad for him.
Traded him in a pick for Keenan Allen like 2 years ago, and God, do I love that now.
Beautiful.
That's a bad one. All right, so my breakout and bust, like I said, go hand in hand. I think my breakout is going to be David Njoku. Reason being, they brought Hooper in. Not that he needed a fire lit under his ass, but I think Njoku is just a more athletic, more skilled player. I don't care if they would have signed him for even more money. I just think he's a better player overall than Austin Hooper. So that's going to be my bust. All that money went down the drain there in Cleveland. And I think Njoku is going to step up and say, what the hell were you guys thinking? Even if they want to run, double tight set, Njoku is the better overall. And I mean, there really shouldn't be a question about it. Kind of going off what you said, walk with the product of Atlanta. I really think that is the case. Atlanta was playing like shit last year, had no running game. So where's the targets going to go besides Hooper? Or I meant Julio. So they went to Hooper. So I think that's where it is, even with the wide receivers being a little banged up.
Well, all my dynasty teams in my heart want you to be correct, to be totally honest with you. But I just, money talks. They have to.
There's also the other side of the coin, though. When you pay guys, they don't give a shit. I'm not going to go over the middle anymore. I got to make this money. So, you just got to, I guess we got to see, but that's just where I'm at with it. Go ahead and give us your sleeper then, Walk.
Well, I didn't get my bust, so let's start with that. And if John wants to talk about disagreeing on this episode, we might as well just dive right into probably one of his favorite players of all Fantasy 40 time, and it's Kareem Hunt.
Oh,
I am going to defer to what I've seen from Stefanski, and it's prioritizing one running back staying on the field, and what he did with Dalvin Cook, and then what he did with the Mike Boone and Alexander Madison short experiments, but doesn't like shuffling guys on and off the field like Freddie Kitchens. was doing far too often for my liking last year. And I think Kareem Hunt is now a luxury and a break glass in case of emergency player with Chubb. They might even trade him at the deadline if the opportunity presents itself because he will be unrestricted next year. I don't think he gets the utilization that he got last year and becomes like that primary passing game guy. They're going to pound Nick Chubb. 300 carries and probably another 40, 50 receptions this year and try and win games the Minnesota Vikings way. So my bust is Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt's not even a weekly flex running back this year.
For you feeling that strongly about the bus, man, and I've been trying to scoop Kareem Hunt for cheap, and no one's budging. I think everyone just kind of wants to wait. But John, you gonna defend your boy?
We'll get to that eventually. Are we sticking with busts? Boy, this is Walker and I do not disagree much, but there is a ton of that today. This is fun. Bust Austin Hooper. I think that we'll get to sleeper, which is Njoku for me, but I think the expectations for Hooper are too high. I don't think this offense is as potent as Atlanta's. I think that was largely a product of his season last year was a product of just being in Atlanta, and that's what they kind of did. He was obviously a higher draft pick, so people do like him, the talent's there. But I just think the way this offense is set up and the hype surrounding him with his contract, I don't think he meets it. So for me, Hooper's the bust. I think he's probably going to be a tight end 2, so it's not complete bottoming out, but people expecting him to repeat is I think he was tight end 6 last year. Just because of the contract and landing in Cleveland, I don't see it. So Hooper's my bust.
All right. I mean, I like it because that was mine. So I think I've agreed with Walk on some and John on some. So this is a good show right here. It's usually we're all on the same page today.
Well, listen, where we'll all put a bow on it is I also have Njoku as my sleeper. So not totally out on him, but it's sad that he fully qualifies as a sleeper candidate here because they can sustain multiple tight ends in this offense, in my opinion. And he can always overtake Cooper. I don't believe it's going to happen, but he can. So he'd be the only one on this team for me to qualify as a sleeper. Some guy that can jump up and catch 6 or 8 touchdowns in a season and be a low-end tight end 1 because that's all you need to do.
In the beginning, I think it was the first preseason game. He caught 2 in the back of the end zone Baker's rookie year, and I was like, oh, shit, here it comes. So, I mean, opportunity hopefully is going to be there, John. And you said your sleeper is?
Yeah, Njoku. I just a big fan of the talent, always have been. Walk mentioned earlier, he came into the league as a 20-year-old tight end. So add the 3 years or so, as everybody likes to say, for him to develop. And I think this is the year he breaks out. Teams know what Hooper can do. If they are running 2 tight end sets, they're going to prioritize stopping Hooper. So I think that actually opens up the field more for Njoku. And I'm just a big fan. I mean, he got hurt real early in the year last year. I think broke his wrist, right, in the first game of the year and landed on his head.
He got a concussion along with breaking his wrist.
Yeah. And so he just got off to as bad a start as you can, and people forgot about him. 2 years ago, the expectations were high last year because 2 years ago, 56 catches, 639, and 4 scores. There's no reason he can't duplicate that or do better. And, that was as a 21-year-old guy with 2 years experience. So I'm very bullish. I've been trying to buy, but similar, you'd mentioned with Hunt, people aren't selling for cheap, unfortunately.
Yeah.
This kid only turns 24 next month.
Yeah.
This guy is 10 plus years easy left in him.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we're already saying he's a sleeper.
Yeah, definitely hold on to your Njoku. I guess the player predictions, I'll just lead off here. You guys alluded to both of the players getting surgery, but I'm going to go with Jarvis Landry still going to outperform Odell Beckham, and the Browns have to part ways with Beckham because of what they gave up to get him and money-wise. I just don't think Odell is Odell anymore. I mean, when's the last time we saw him play a full season and get her done? So I think Jarvis Landry outperforms Odell Beckham. I don't know if that's going out on a limb, honestly, at this point.
He outperformed him last year, so I don't think it qualifies. But that's the unfortunateness of it is everyone just wants this resurgence from Beckham like I did in Scott Fishbowl last year. I'm still holding out hope. He's still theoretically in his prime. He's saying all the right shit, about being ready. But then he goes and gets core muscle surgery. He's acting like an a-hole during the LSU title run. Like, who even knows, anymore with this guy? So it's the unfortunate. He's in a better position in this offense because of what I said about Landry earlier. But I just think that's probably the smart money.
You broke the rule though. No mention Scott Fishbowl until the third guy gets in.
Gotcha. Yeah, he should not be named, but they combined for 271 targets last year, Landry and Beckham, and I'll take the under on those combined targets this year. So they better be more efficient. They both had over 130 targets. That ain't happening in Stefanski's offense. He has his way. It's just not. My prediction is going to be, and it should have been last year, and he got screwed at the final stretch, but Nick Chubb is going to lead the NFL in rushing yards.
Ooh, that's a big one. I thought we weren't going bold, Walk.
He was running back 2 last year in rushing.
I don't think it's that bold.
Not. He should have won it last year. They force fed Derrick Henry.
Well, Hunt was gone for the first 6 or 8. I can't recall.
6, I think.
Yeah, I forget what it was because there was like a buy in there, so it's whatever.
I'm just saying, I think Hunt definitely dives in. I mean, when he did get the ball, when he was done with his suspension, he looked pretty damn good. So I don't think you can count on all those players for Chubb.
I blame Fred Kitchens for that.
Okay, John?
How many times do you think the phrase "I blame Fred Kitchens" is mentioned at the Browns office?
Daily. It's probably like one of their
a million?
kind of like batters.
It's that board when they leave the locker room that everyone slaps, jumps up and hits as they go to the field.
I love Nick Chubb. I love Kareem Hunt. Top of my head, it might be my 2 favorite running backs in the NFL. It's a shame I can't get either one of their jerseys because I'm not wearing a fucking brown and orange jersey. However, going opposite Walker here, as much as I love Chubb, I think in PPR leagues this year, Kareem Hunt outscores him. I think Hunt ends up more fantasy points than Chubb in PPR leagues.
Nice. Okay. I like that. Well, that'll wrap it up for the Cleveland Browns. We already gave our predictions of the standings a couple weeks ago, so you guys can go back and check those out if you want to see how this division shakes out. But we're going to move on in alphabetical order. We're going up to Baltimore or over, however you want to look at it geographically. But the Ravens just killed it. Best team, was it regular season-wise last year? Kind of succumbed to Pat Mahomes' Chiefs in the playoffs, but we all predicted that the Ravens are going to the Super Bowl, I believe, or at least making the title game. So we'll start off with the rookie and free agent games. You can go with this one, John.
Good, because they did a bunch of defensive guys, so John's just going to rattle off all these.
Our new IDP in-house player.
I do like me some IDP. Rookies, the ones we know about. J.K. Dobbins obviously was taken in the second round by them. Later on in the draft, took some offensive guard, a tackle. But the important ones for fantasy, wide receiver, Devin Duvernay in the 3rd out of Texas, and James Prochet, my boy, out of SMU in the 6th. I'm a big fan of both of theirs long-term. I don't know if Duvernay should have more of a role this year than Prochet. But I like both of them going forward because the other guys that are there, like Snead, they're looking at contracts expiring, and if they show anything, they may be handed the job going to next season. So they addressed wide receiver with 2 picks in this draft and a running back, so that they're on the league, one of the league's top offenses for the foreseeable future as long as Jackson is there. They all 3 can have fantasy potential in the future.
Yeah, I mean, the irony of what the Ravens did is that they needed to bolster the offensive weaponry around Lamar Jackson. Like, they were successful in spite of their offensive talent. I mean, like you said, Willie Snead was their wide receiver 2 last year. Hollywood Brown was on and off the field constantly. Boykin didn't translate right away. Just like 1 or 2 other guys. Is Chris Moore still there? Probably.
Yeah.
Another guy,
Yeah, somewhere.
They ran everything through the tight ends. Mark Andrews was awesome because I said he was going to be, so of course he was going to be. Pat on the back right here for this guy. Hayden Hurst even had splashes. Interesting to see what he ends up in Atlanta, but they cleared the deck with him, so maybe we'll get a lot more Nick Boyle as the tight end 2 blocking. But I agree with John. These guys have opportunity almost right away, and it's scary to think what the Ravens offense can be if if even one of those wide receivers hits, because we're going to assume J.K. Dobbins is going to eat a fair share this year and is going to be the man next year. But if just one of those two guys is any type of value, it's a home run for this offense, because just add that with Brown and those guys are underneath type guys. It could take it to a next level.
We could almost call him a rookie, Jaleel Scott. I don't know if he's still on the roster, but I know he picked up all last year. He did not really get to do anything on the field. I guess we could kind of pencil him in there as a rookie this year as well, and maybe he has a good training camp and earn some time, because that's a big receiver that, when they had both tight ends, they were pretty much unstoppable with Jackson's rushing ability down there in the red zone. So if Jaleel kind of pans out this year, why not throw him in and toss him up a few? So
year 3, isn't it for him?
I think it's. Is it? He's been injured his whole life. But
listen, John just needs to just DM Jaleel Scott and just write the name Darren Waller. Go and put on 40 pounds, however you need to, and try and figure this shit out as a move tight end.
Yeah, that's not a bad point. Okay, so
strategy.
We got the rookies out of the way. Let's go ahead and go to the breakout player, Walk.
Begrudgingly. And if we're talking about it, me and John disagreeing, I'm pretty comfortable saying he's not going to agree with this breakout. But it's going to be Hollywood Brown. And that dude wasn't even on the field that much. I mean, I don't need to pull snap counts to see that this dude didn't play a lot for this team. They're saying he's healthy. His foot's better. It's now a year in the system, year waiting training. He's just an electric kid that can turn 2 catches into 100 yards and a touchdown in any given week. And he's the top dog in that receiver room, and he's going to be 1,006 minimal, in my opinion, if he stays healthy this year. He's not going to get receiving volume, so maybe he takes a little hit in PPR, but he's going to win people some weeks, and I think at the end of the season, his stat line is probably going to have him as like a middling wide receiver too.
I was listening to a podcast, the old Podfather, the other day, and he mentioned Hollywood Brown. I don't want to take credit because it's not my thoughts, but just kind of what you were going off of too, Walk, is he was saying, Lamar Jackson in Superflex leagues is getting taken, first to fourth overall in pretty much every single draft. And then you scroll all the way down, I think he said something like 84. There's where Hollywood's being drafted. And he thinks it's outrageous that a quarterback's getting drafted that high, but his number one target is not even, getting in the wide receiver 1-2 territory. So you brought up some good points there.
Yeah, he's a free square. I mean, unfortunately, Lamar Jackson is not a normal quarterback. He's the one that rushed for 1,200 yards last year and throws the ball disproportionately to his tight ends.
Well, he gets to spin off the Bengals for 2 weeks, so a year. So that makes it pretty easy. John, you got a breakout?
I got a stat line for Walker. Brown, for several reasons, it reminds me of Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson, year 2 in the league, and similar to the numbers you just speculated here, 62 catches, 1,100 yards, 9 touchdowns. I think that's a reasonable expectation for Hollywood this year, which is right where you had him.
Yeah, and I don't want to compare him to Djax because I think Djax gets underappreciated by and large, and I'm an Eagles fan, so I was there. But he's a special player, for his size. He's a competitor.
Yeah.
And he's just not one-dimensional burner, and I agree. And I think Jackson even slightly bigger than Marquise Brown, but it's there.
Yep.
It's there for him. If he can stay healthy, which you can't hit people anymore in the NFL, so the likelihood's there that Marquise Brown is going to have like 2 or 3 2-touchdown games this year. So, yeah, it's not going to be a stretch to reach 8 or 9.
Well, just for your bigger comparison, Djax 185, Marquise 175. So
that's a weight class,
It is. So is
it's 2, isn't it?
Yeah. Whatever.
So was that your breakout as well, John?
No, my breakout actually, I went with Devin Duvernay, one of my favorite rookies in this class. He just opportunity. They spent decent draft capital on him, 3rd round, day 2 pick. He's going to get. If he shows anything at all this year, he's going to take over the slot role because Snead's contract is up and they're going to plug him in there next year. So they're going to get him on the field. They're going to want to see him out there. And I think as the year progresses, he picks up a little more volume. And I think Duvernay has a decent year in PPR leagues. Obviously, again, you're not expecting him to win you any leagues, but he'll be serviceable for your bye weeks, and especially in the fantasy playoffs. I think he's someone you can count on at the end of the year.
I mean, not to throw Cowboys references out there, but a guy taken in the third round that, keeps progressing is Michael Gallup.
Don't get me started.
If you like him as much as you like Gallup, I know you were kind of a fan of him around draft time back then.
And there goes Burke. Didn't want to hear any more of that Cowboys talk. This is a AFC North episode. So
hey, I had to do it. But so I'm gonna start looking into Duvernay, John, because I was stealing Gallup everywhere back. Now
yeah, I'm with John. I'm with John on Duvernay. I like Duvernay a lot, and I think his skills translates into this offense. Just quick hitters to him. A lot of slants, a lot of screens, bubble screens and all. Jet sweeps even. Like, they're just going to get the ball in this kid's hands, and there's opportunity in that offense.
Breaking tackles. And going back to Prochet, just to throw his name out there, Prochet, and you mentioned Hollywood possibly getting injured and missing time. Prochet and Duvernay are both going to be dressed week 1 because they return kicks and punts. So odds are they're both going to be dressed for special teams. And if there are injuries ahead of them, they will get chances to play because they will be on the sideline. They're going to be dressed. They're not guys who are going to be, the game day scratches or sitting on the practice squad. They're going to be dressed on game day for their special teams ability. And this isn't the healthiest wide receiver core ahead of them. So they may end up through attrition getting more targets than you're expecting just because someone gets banged up early in a game. They plug one of them in because they're there and they're in uniform.
All right, man. That's some good advice right there. I like that. My breakout is not a breakout because he already did, but I think he's going to do even more is Mark Andrews now with Hurst leaving, going to Atlanta. This guy can't be stopped. I would say he's a pretty good route runner, but he can do both things, and that's what keeps you on the field. As long as he stays injury-free, kind of got banged up there towards the end, cost me a couple games. But, Mark Andrews, his rapport with Lamar Jackson is already tier 1. Those guys get along, and they seem to be on the same page. So I had to throw in an obvious one for my breakout, so I'll go Mark Andrews. But we'll move to the bust, John. Who you got busting in this offense?
Not a true bust in the sense of the word, but someone who's not going to live up to their ADP. Much like last year, I was not buying the Pat Mahomes price, and he largely due to injury, but he did not meet up to expectations last season. And I think Lamar Jackson just set the bar so fucking high last year that he's only got one way to go, and that's down. So for me, it's Lamar Jackson. Do I think he stinks? Absolutely not. Do I think he's not going to be quarterback 1? Absolutely not. But I don't think he finishes, top 2 at the position like he's being drafted as. So I think he finishes a little bit lower end QB1. But given the hype and where he's going in drafts, yeah, I think he's a bust.
Walk, do you agree here for once?
No, not a bust. I'm not going to ever put that next to Lamar Jackson's name. I get where John was going, but listen, you were talking so nicely about Mark Andrews, and I didn't get to say anything. Mark Andrews is amazing. Only tight end in the top 5 with less than 100 targets last year. Also, the only tight end that caught 10 touchdowns last year. He's going to get over 100 targets this year if he stays healthy easily in that offense. Should crack 1,000 yards. And if he can even come close to those 10 touchdowns, he could be tight end 1 this year. There's just no hyperbole there. It's just a slight amount of targets. Lamar Jackson threw it 401 times last year in 15 games. Okay, just for a point of reference, in those same 15 games, Matt Ryan threw it 616 times. Okay, that for you that aren't good at math, I'm talking to you, John. That's 215 more attempts in the same amount of games. That's crazy. That's half a season of Lamar Jackson difference. He's going to throw it more. They have the talent with him, but the rushing is where the issue is going to lie. He's not rushing for 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns again. Can he rush for 900 yards and 5 touchdowns? Yes, easily in this offense. Yeah. So he'll borrow a little bit in the passing game because they're not going to be in these blowouts where they were taking Lamar Jackson's foot off the pedal or even feet off the field by the end of the game and seeing a little Robert Griffin burn. Like, they're going to be in more competitive game scripts this year. So he's going back-to-back as quarterback 1. It might not be, the tier above everyone else, 30-plus points per game he averaged last year, but he's still my QB1 this year. Above Patrick Mahomes. So, yeah, I'm defending both. Didn't even get to my bust. I'm going to abstain from the bust here. It's probably against the rules, but I wrote the show sheet, so I'm going to do it. There isn't a player here that can bust because – all right, I'll go with one. Mark Ingram. Sorry. I'll change.
Damn it. That's what I was going to go with.
I'll change my entire position because Mark Ingram is turned at 31 in December. Got hurt to end the season. Was uber efficient in this offense. Only had 201 carries, and he was running back 8 last season. J.K. Dobbins is better than Gus Edwards and Justice Hill. I don't think that's a hot take at all. They're going to use him in his rookie year more than any Mark Ingram owner is going to want them to. Might not be immediately out the gate, but before too long, it's going to be a full-blown timeshare in Baltimore, and it could even be hot handy, and it could truthfully be Dobbins' job by the end of the season as he's just younger, fresher legs carrying that offense. So I think the Mark Ingram run is over. If you can sell him for anything of value right now, I'm doing it because I don't see best case scenario in his touchdown dependent. He's a running back 2 this year. And if you can still sell him for that running back 8 price, I would do that in a heartbeat.
That's a good point there. That's where I was going to go as well. It's just too crowded back there, even with J.K. Dobbins, creeping up the depth chart without even playing any downs over Edwards and Justice. So I'm on the same page there. Sleepers, I just can't find one. The Ravens offense to me is what you see is what you get. I know John's big on these rookie receivers coming in and stepping in, so I won't steal his thunder because I didn't know shit about either of those guys to start with. So I'm going to abstain and use your card here on this one, Walk, because we all know J.K. Dobbins is going to come in there and steal work, so I don't want to put him as the sleeper. So I'm just going to, throw it to one of you guys and let you try to find me a sleeper.
Yeah, I'll jump in with a name that I think was only mentioned once, and it was in passing thus far. And ultimately, the sleeper on this team is going to be whoever is the wide receiver 2 in Baltimore. And I'm going to go with the year of service is going to give Miles Boykin the edge over the 2 guys John mentioned. Miles Boykin blew up the combine last year. It was like the alpha athlete. Didn't really translate in year 1, needed some time. I don't think this offense was really predicated around the wide receiver at all. So a year in the system for Miles Boykin. He had draft capital as well last year. He could be the second receiving option in Baltimore this year. And I don't say that with such conviction, but I'll give him the edge over Duvernay and Prochet.
All right. I like it. John, what do you got?
Yeah, it's funny. You were like, I'm not quite sure. And Walk said the same thing. It's the only thing I have on my sheet with a question mark. I'm like, everybody knows who's here. There's no one that's really going to emerge from the depths of the depth chart, for lack of a better way to word that. Yeah. So I mean, Gus Edwards might be able to do a little more than you think because people do like Ingram. He produced here last year. A lot of people love Dobbins. If I gun to my head, I got to make a decision. Why not Nick Boyle? They got Hurst out of there. Andrews is clearly going to be the number 1 ahead of him. But with that being the case, last year, Hurst put up 30, 340, and 2 touchdowns. The tight end landscape is dog shit most weeks. Could he be usable on an occasional basis? Yes. If Andrews misses any time. They do like Boyle. Boyle's had, I think, 2 or 3 drug suspensions already. So if they were going to cut him, that ship has already sailed. And I like Boyle coming out of Delaware, another Senior Bowl guy that I liked as a rookie. So I think the talent's there. Do I think he's going to be a sleeper in the sense that he's usable week in, week out? No. But he's someone to keep on your radar, especially if you're super thin at tight end in some leagues.
The irony of those 2 guys, and I agree with you, is Nick Boyle had 1 more reception for, looks like, roughly 20 less yards and the same amount of touchdowns as Hayden Hurst last year.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So we got our player predictions, then we'll move on to the Steelers. So players' predictions. John, why don't you open up?
Walk already said it in his talking points unintentionally, but Mark Andrews will be the tight end 1.
Was it unintentional?
I don't think I don't think Walk's going to disagree on this one, but who do you have, Walker?
Nah, I like it. He was tight end 2 last year, so it was
not a stretch.
I'm going to go with, and I referenced Hollywood Brown earlier. I'm buying in, and I'll go a little bolder, like around John's Deshaun Jackson comparison year 2, and say 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns. Is well within the range of possibility for Hollywood Brown.
Nice. My player prediction is nothing too crazy, but I think J.K. takes over the starting role by week 4. Bye-bye, Mr. Ingram. Okay, so we'll go on to the Steelers, the last team in AFC North. I almost said AFC. Whatever. AFC North. I almost said East, but still want to talk about the Patriots so bad. So we will go with rookie additions to your Walk. Anything of note that the Steelers brought in? Maybe someone to replace James Conner for one?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have a first-round pick because they went and got Minkah Fitzpatrick from the Miami Dolphins, I guess, thinking that they were going to go to the Super Bowl with what's his name? Christ,
Duck Hodges?
The other one. Why would you want to like
Mason Rudolph.
Mason Rudolph. There he is. They thought they were going to the Super Bowl with him, but listen, Fitzpatrick did change that offense. But their first draft pick was on our buddy Clay Chasepool. So apparently he's going to be the next great thing because the Steelers never whiff on wide receiver Lima Swede. But we'll just move on past him. And to your point, the guy you were referencing.
Marcus Wheaton,
We're there, people. It's not a sure thing. And stop comparing him to Calvin Johnson, okay? Like, enough. Anthony McFarland Jr. at pick 124 overall was who you were referencing. I'm not the biggest McFarland fan. I think he's good. I don't think he's special. And I think he's a little slight, even though then people throw the BMI out there because supposedly he's like 5'8", like 210. So he's, goddamn, he weighs more than I do for being 4 inches shorter. So far be it from me to question this man's strength. He's built like Devonta Freeman is what he looks like to me. I don't ever see him being the bell cow. I see a perfect change of pace, complimentary type back. And I think the running back room in Pittsburgh is going to be a minefield this year. It's going to be whoever scores the touchdown that week, or if Connor gets hurt, then, maybe Benny Snell gets a little more touches. Jalen Samuel is still there for now. I've been hearing they might cut him, which doesn't make sense to me. They just need to use him better. And then you try and get anything out of McFarland. It's just I want nothing to do with Pittsburgh's backfield until they draft another running back next year.
Yeah, if they cut Jalen Samuels, that's a bold move by the front office.
That would be good for us. Maybe he goes somewhere that actually uses him appropriately. Like would be my hope and pray. Like,
yeah, I mean, I was just trying to scan through and think, and I don't know where he would fit in great besides New England. But,
31 other teams, obviously, where he'd fit in better than Pittsburgh.
That's very true. Okay, John, your breakout.
We missed free agency. We cannot get through this without mentioning Walk's boy, Eric Ebron.
Oh, I forgot.
Ebron 100 rise again, fellas. It's going to be so beautiful when he scores 8 touchdowns this year for the Steelers and ends up being a low-end tight end one all over again. And then all the people come out and say, well, remember last year? And I'm like, well, do you remember 2 years ago? And then they're going to say, you remember 3 years ago? And I'm like, I feel like I've been in this conversation before. So yeah, I've already won Eric Ebron, in my opinion. He had the season that everyone wants their tight end to have once in a lifetime, and it's a double-digit touchdown season. So I'm whole as far as Eric Ebron's concerned. Anything he does for the rest of his career is just a bunch of cherries on top of my deliciously huge Sunday. Go fuck yourself, Twitter.
If Big Ben stays healthy and is in good shape as all these people are talking about, oh my God, Ebron could have a monster year. So I'm glad you brought that up, John.
And they use him right. Don't tie him to the line. Let him be your kind of like big slot. Package him. He doesn't.
Well,
have to.
Not that Jesse James was a world beater, but he was formidable in some formats, and if he can do some things, I think Ebron's got plenty of room.
Keith Miller 2.0.
Oh, yeah, right. And then Vance McDonald did his one stiff arm and wasn't really heard from that much again. Okay, John. So now we can go to your breakout.
My breakout, and might be a little cheating because I believe he technically broke out last year, leading the Steelers in receptions and touchdowns, Mr. Deontay Johnson. I think he is going to surpass Juju as the top option in the passing game there. I think Juju's more suited as a 2, and if Johnson does take that next step, I think it's good for Juju because he's not going to face the top corners again, which he benefited from when Antonio Brown was opposite him. So I love Deontay Johnson. I think he takes a step forward this year, even though he, like I said, led the team in receptions and touchdowns. So he kind of already broke out, but he's my guy to take a big step up on this team next year.
Yeah, and I'm real thankful I was camping in the woods when you guys got a hold of somebody and drafted for me. Thank you. That kind of worked out for me there. So I appreciate that. I forgot what team lead. I don't know who did it. It was a Diva or Walk.
Okay, full credit for that. DeBari's higher on Deontay Johnson than me. I wasn't when he came out of Toledo, and he nothing special athletically, honestly. He was just one of these guys that they said, like, great route runner and creates separation. And then Pittsburgh takes him, and then, like, the rocket ship starts to take off. Most of what he did last year was not with Ben Roethlisberger. So kudos to him for putting that stat line together with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph. But I'm not even going to close to say he takes over as the alpha in Pittsburgh. I think that has a rapport with Juju. Juju was hurt last year and dealing with that same treasure trove of CFL quarterbacks. And last year did not happen in Pittsburgh. It just didn't. It was a mythical season. Like, I'm not taking any of it, at face value, or James Washington would be an all-pro if Duck Hodges just stayed on the field the entire time. That wasn't meant to be either. So I don't hate Deontay Johnson, but I think we're going a bit too far on just anointing him after pretty much a half a season of decent production. I mean, he didn't blow things up, so he didn't even have the season that Juju did his rookie season. So,
okay, we get it. You don't want Deontay to break out, Walk.
No, he's going to be fine as a wide receiver 2 in Pittsburgh. There's value there. But Juju is coming for blood this year. And listen, anyone's buying into these, Burke, you're the king of the offseason hype. You seeing this dude?
Right.
Jacked.
Wait till you hear mine.
Juju looks like he could eat through a brick wall if he wanted to right now. The dude he's here, and the Pittsburgh's not extending him. They're trying to trade him, willing to release him, doing all this and that. Oh, he's going to have the season this year, John. Juju's going to have 100 catches, 1,400 yards.
God damn.
This year, right? So just,
by the way, you mentioned Njoku's age when we were talking about Cleveland. Juju's
not younger than every receiver that got drafted this year.
He's not going to be 24 till Thanksgiving.
I mean, he's entering that prime. He had a write-off season. So total tangent.
Yep.
But can't really claim Juju as a breakout because he's already broke out. What about a re-breakout? No one wants to love Juju anymore. John just already said he's the wide receiver 2 on his own team. Juju's a wide receiver 1 overall, clearly the wide receiver 1 in Pittsburgh. And I already went with my prediction at the end, so we'll just stick with that. I'm going Juju breaking out, and I'm going with him as well.
I'm glad you alluded to the study and the work I put in the offseason, watching all these amazing hype videos. And, the only one I really got to lay my eyes on is when Ben was, shaving his beard, working out with 3 guys. And this is kind of off superstition, but I'm going to throw Switzer in there. Finally gets, I think he takes over the wide receiver 3 role and steals it from James Washington, because he had a problem with the drops last year. And don't get me wrong, I love James Washington. I think he's more of a field stretcher, go down there and make some plays down the field. But, he moves up my board a little bit. Not calling for a bold breakout, like 70 receptions or something, but I mean, a formidable, 35 to 45 catches, maybe 600 to 700 yards in the little slot, picking up those Cole Beasley first downs. I think, Switzer could be that guy. So that'll be my breakout. Probably not even going to happen, but call me superstitious. I'm not giving up the Switzer love that I've had since my Cowboys drafted him.
All
you
right.
guys can make fun of me all you want, but that's where I'm at. Okay.
Man of the people.
All right. So, Walk, who's your bust?
James Conner. Let's just start there, but it's every Pittsburgh running back. Like another guy who probably has the biggest back on any average size human being I've ever seen in my life. And good for him for taking his health seriously and getting in unbelievable shape. It's because it's his contract year. And that's kind of what you do is get in the best shape of your life and fully commit. Well, he's either taking a team-friendly deal with Pittsburgh or going somewhere else next year. But there's just a lot of guys eating in that offense now. And he's not going to get the workload that he required to be productive before. And I've said it every single time we've ever talked about James Conner is he was a volume-dependent running back. He's not overly special in any way, shape, or form. He's not even a plus pass catcher. He's just a good pass catcher. And he was just blessed with the volume for a nice period of time, and that's why he was productive. And as the volume wanes, so is his production. So he's busting for anyone that thinks he's going to return RB1 value for him this year. He is not.
Okay. John?
It's an anti-Connor pod. That was the low-hanging fruit. He was my pick, and I changed it. Real quick, Connor and Snell last year, very similar stat lines, 116 carries to 108, 464 yardage to 426, and then 4 scores to 2 scores. So pretty interchangeable on the field, actually. So, John,
the James Conner, truthers are just going to throw some random shit out about how he hurt himself. And played through some of that injury at one point in time. Like, well, he always hurts himself.
Good for them.
Good point.
My bust, kind of alluded to it with my breakout. Juju, I just don't think he's going off the board. 7th overall wide receiver, 20th in overall draft. I think I worded that like shit, but 20th overall in ADP, 7th at wide receiver. I just don't think he lives up to those ADPs, but that's mainly a product of, I think, Deontay Johnson kind of takes over. And James Washington finally flashed a little bit last year. So I think, kind of to Walker's point with the running back room here, I think on offense with Ebron coming in and what they have at wide receiver now, it seems like Washington's finally clicking. Obviously, I think Johnson breaks out. Jalen Samuels was used in the passing game a fair amount last year. I think there's just a lot of there's only one football on the field, and I don't think he sees the volume to return the value on where he's going in drafts. So he's my bust, but I don't think he's going to be terrible. I just think you're overpaying for him.
Don't quote me on this, but I think the Patriots proposed a rule where there could be 2 footballs on the field in the 2020 NFL season.
3.
And it just didn't pass. But I didn't know Juju was going as wide receiver 7 already at 20th overall, so he better do what I said he's going to do. I haven't looked at any ADP because it's still early for me. I assumed he was being passed over by far lesser receivers and probably hanging in that fringy 1-2 range, like more like the 10 to 15. Good. Smart people out there. Get them there. Get them higher.
I'm gonna go ahead and gobble up that low hanging fruit as well, and just go give a few punches to Connor's face. This is the end. It was supposed to be the end last year. Glad he went and bought his dad a truck because hopefully put some of that money away because the XFL folded. I don't know where you're gonna get that money from next year. So I'm gonna go with James Conner.
Give him something.
Yeah, but listen, there's no money for running backs. See, my problem with Connor is Twitter's made me hate him more. Like he's made me hate him.
Exactly.
I don't hate Connor. I think it's an amazing story. I'd love to love this guy, but it's just this like unreasonable support of how great he is, just relentlessly. And he's not.
When you're bringing out facts like you should see what he eats during the week, his diet, that does not support him being a good football player. So all those points that I've been seeing on Twitter are invalid. So I like James Conner the person, just not the football player. I want to be clear about that. All right. So let's go to the sleepers. Well,
all right. You shit on him twice. John didn't shit on him, but I don't even really think he spoke about him, but I don't believe that Deontay Johnson is just running away with the job as the wide receiver 2 in Pittsburgh personally. And do you fine gentlemen know who led the Pittsburgh Steelers in receiving yards last year?
James Washington.
Correct.
James Washington. Yeah.
Correct. So he's the deep ball guy for them. And didn't really do any of it with Big Ben either. They couldn't seem to connect in his rookie year before Ben got hurt early last year. I just think he's going to be on the field as that stretcher, and Big Ben's going to take some shots. My sleeper is James Washington, who's going to probably at the end of the day have similar probably yardage totals. He's going to finish in that 700 to 800 yards, but he could be a 6-touchdown guy instead of a 2-touchdown guy, and as a wide receiver 2 on your team. I'd say he's a sleeper. He's going to eat into a little bit of what everyone wants Deontay Johnson to get, in my opinion.
Gotcha. I don't know. I think a little bit had to do with Mason Rudolph going to college with him, I think, and coming in there. They had a rapport together. But
the irony is, I'm pretty sure most of his production came with Duck Hodges because Duck Hodges wanted to throw deep.
That's true, too. I don't know.
Jesus.
I don't know why I'm giving up on James Washington. Just not one of those guys.
Wide receiver 69 in ADP, going 157th.
I'm on board now.
Easy money.
Through the 69 out there, I'm on board. But John, who's your sleeper?
And Deontay Johnson's going 47th.
Wow,
that's good value.
Given the price, I'll jump aboard. My sleeper, and not really a sleeper because he is a household name, but Walker's boy, Mr. Eric Ebron.
Nice.
Tight end 30? He's tight end 30. He's going 207th overall in startup.
Oh, my God.
I mean, the upside's there. We've seen what he can do. It's not that Pittsburgh is not a tight end unfriendly offense. They've used tight ends in the past and have done pretty well for themselves, even with lesser talents like your Jesus, Mr. Stiff Arm.
Vance McDonald.
Got Van Jefferson on my brain. I heard VAN and I couldn't get it out of there. But yeah, tight end 30. How does he not outperform that ADP, even if he only plays 8 fucking games? So Ebron has a real shot at finishing top 12. So for him being drafted that low, people just aren't believing. And, you know, he's had a few stinkers mixed in there over his career, but the upside's there, and so is the opportunity in Pittsburgh. So for me, Ebron is my sleeper.
Kirk Ebron was tight end 27 last year, and he only played 11 games. So
I'm on board. On that. I just can't believe when you threw out the ADP at 30th overall out of that is absurd. I think the worst thing that ever happened to Ebron is when Luck retired, because he was even getting carries and goal line work, you know, on the tight end arounds when he was scoring all those touchdowns. And if Pittsburgh gets a little bit creative, just a little bit with Ebron's skill set, he's still relatively young. He was super young when he got drafted out in Detroit. So I still think there's room not only to develop for him, but he's there in the skill set. So I love that one.
Eric Ebron has had one of the most curious career paths I've ever seen for a player. And yeah, to your point, he just turned 27, back in April. So has 7 good years left in him, but just like repeatedly shit on during his whole career in Detroit because he was selected 10th overall. He didn't select himself 10th overall. The stupid Detroit Lions selected him 10th overall. It's not his fault that he got selected that early. And he just didn't seem like he was prepared for the NFL. He was more of a slot wide receiver than tight end. But then he explodes, like you said, when he was with the Colts and Andrew Luck. And then Andrew Luck retires, and it seems like the entire Colts organization turned their back on him. Like, immediately. He wasn't prioritized anymore. Ballard came out and unnecessarily, said, no, we're not re-signing him. I don't even know that the question was, are you re-signing Eric Ebron? He took the opportunity in front of a mic just to let everyone know, we're not re-signing him. Like, you mean the guy that led your team in touchdown receptions a year prior? Okay, yeah, don't need that guy on your team. Could he be that big of a malcontent? I guess anything's possible, but he doesn't seem like it. It's just strange the roller coaster that Eric Ebron's on.
Yeah, it's like, how do you feel about Marlon Mack? Oh, great. And we're thinking about re-signing Christian Michael again. But we're definitely not signing about people.
He's not the guy that uses the media to shit on people. And he took full opportunity to let Eric Ebron know on national television that he was not.
Sure, there might be something deeper in there, maybe some locker room shit that we'll never know about. But I found that odd as well. Let's go to the player predictions. Walk, why don't you lead off with your player prediction?
Listen, I'm going to stick to my guns. 1,410 for Juju Smith-Schuster this year.
All right, that's a nice one. What about you, John?
Already touched on this one. I think Deontay Johnson is a top 12 fantasy wide receiver.
Do not know what Ben's ADP is, but if healthy, I say he is in the top 8 this year.
He's 83, I think what it is.
He is currently. I mean, obviously there's some ageism that goes into dynasty startup ADP here. Currently, quarterback 34.
Yep, I say he's top 8, not even 12. I'm going 8, number 8 overall.
If he can hold up and just cobble it together for 1 or 2 more years, then my Juju and Ebron shares are going to be extremely grateful to him.
That's hilarious. Obviously Ebron's not getting his ADP, but you look at, Deontay Johnson, Juju, and James Washington, and then Ben Roethlisberger's at 34. It's almost the opposite of what Lamar Jackson's dealing with. He's going 1 through 4, and then his number 1 target's all the way at the bottom. So sometimes, this is when we haven't done an ADP show in a while. Maybe that's what we'll do after we finish this series up, but it just doesn't make sense where people are being drafted if you're going to take a guy on his team that's distributing the ball a lot lower than the guys that are catching it.
Okay. I'm there with you. I don't think 8's in his range of outcomes because he just brings nothing rushing anymore unless he gets some 6 junk 1-yard touchdown plunges. But I think he can be a low-end QB1. I think he can be in that 12-ish range easily and assist with the production of all these other guys. So 34, but 34, you said, John? That's that's a bit much. I mean, even if
ridiculous.
You just take 2 years,
I mean,
you're taking every quarterback plus a backup.
Yeah, that must mean like Tyrod Taylor's going before him or something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
everybody.
Ryan Fitzpatrick's probably above him, and that's
yeah.
I mean, he might not even have a whole full season in Miami, but
I'm sure Jameis is one of those guys for sure, though.
Yeah, look towards the future.
But that was the AFC North. Not too flashy, especially with the Ravens. We couldn't really find breakout players, but I don't know what we're doing next week. Next week. Who's on the slate next week?
Look at the compass.
Yep, we're going north, south, east, west. It's the way it shook out. So we'll be talking about the always exciting AFC South.
Perfect. This is a good one. Hopefully you got some fantasy advice in buried in there. I mean, the beginning of the show, Walk and the Barrow were definitely disagreeing quite a bit. They kind of came to senses towards the end there. Besides the old Deontay Johnson Juju, I can't wait to see how that one shakes out.
Besides everything.
I was going to say, it doesn't surprise me that we totally disagreed on the Bengals and the Browns. The Browns are just wrought with disagreement. Like, it just breeds disagreement between individuals. And the Bengals, I already said I'm pretty high on them this year. So I'm not surprised that John wanted to chop the legs out from under me with Joe Burrow and those Bengals.
John's got the Bungles and Walk's got the Bengals. So I can't wait to see. This will be interesting how this shakes out. But we're going to wrap it up here. We went a little long today. We'll try to clean it up next time. But it's been a while since we all got together. I'm glad I got to finally, do another show with you. I missed last week with Oklahoma Doug. So that was a good one. If you guys haven't heard that, make sure to go check it out before you dive into this one. But anything else before we go?
Yeah, like you said, we're probably going to have to set the clock going forward. I think we all agreed 15 minutes a team to keep this to an hour episode. And while we have a lot of outtakes, because the beginning of this was just gem after gem, which you'll catch at the end of this episode, yeah, we'll try and keep it down to an hour going forward.
Perfect. All right. Well, for myself, Andrew Burke, John DeBari, Matt Walker, we're the Fantasy 40. Remember to like, rate, and subscribe on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, Pocket Cast. Anywhere you can find a podcast, we're on it. Even that Google Play. Follow us at the Fantasy 40 on Twitter. Once again, we're the Fantasy 40, and we are signing off.
Oh!
Look at his face.
Oh, it's perfect.
I got a screenshot.
All right, one more time.
Can you hear me again?
You froze.
Yeah.
Right when he asked you the question. And you had a face like this, or something.
It's unfortunate. It's just what I look like.
This is my face.
So, yeah.
Oh, my God, dude.
The problem is my face.
All right, we're going to do this one take so Walk doesn't have a lot of work to do. In the AFC, come on, man. Yeah.
Just stop writing stuff down.
The AFC, come on, man.
No, this is what we're doing. You just
my shithead son just fucking walked in.
Perfect. This is going to be the best outtakes episode ever.